Welcome once again to Breakfast Central. The Nigerian Senate has confirmed the nomination of Lauretta Onochie as the substantive chairman of the board of the Niger Delta Development Commission, NDDC. The lawmakers also confirmed the nomination of 12 others as managing director, executive directors, and commission members following the consideration of a report by the Senate Committee on Niger Delta Affairs, chaired by Bulus Amos.
During plenary, the objections raised by Senators Seriake Dixon and Nicholas Tofowomo against Onochie and Charles Ogumola from Ondo State were, however, ignored. Senate President Ahmed Lawan urged the new board and the management of the NDDC not to see the commission as a cash cow, but as an interventionist agency created to facilitate the development of the Niger Delta region. Ms. Onochie was appointed by President Muhammadu Buhari in October 2020 as INEC Commissioner to represent Delta State, an appointment which triggered outrage among Nigerians, as many described it as unconstitutional. Joining us this morning to discuss this further is Nubari Saata. He's the president and the leader, Niger Delta Congress. Good morning, and thank you very much for joining us.
Good morning, compliments on this season. Good to be here.
All right, so I'm going to start, on a, pretty plain, base here. Why does this always sound, and of course, maybe it's speculate with Nigerian politics, but why does this sound like settlement? It sounds like, she started off, in 2016, I believe, as aide to the president on social media. Eventually, there was an attempt to make Lauretta Onochie an INEC commissioner, which was rejected by Nigerians, and of course, that was eventually put down. And now, of course, she's been moved to the NDDC. So it doesn't necessarily feel like any of these things are done based on looking at her qualifications and saying, okay, this is where, you would, work best for the nation. It seems more like we need to find something for this person. I'm speaking, as a Nigerian. Do I make any sense? And do you agree with my sentiment here?
Yeah, you do, of course. Like you said, it is settlement. It's not like it looks like it is. If you follow the history of the Niger Delta Development Commission since its establishment, you realize that it has mostly been seen as an agency to give us, like you said, settlement, a reward for political loyalty to the government at the center, and less about the actual development of the region. That's why you can have people coming to film at public hearings about when it's time to give a report about the NDDC. So that's basically what happens. This is not the first time, and it's just unfortunate because the Niger Delta people who are really in need of development are the ones who are going to bear the consequences of people playing politics with their very, very lives.
It's interesting how this is played out. There have been reports also talking about how the Senate shuns the concerns of Nigerians and goes ahead to screen her. How have people been accepting this, and how do you foresee, this will happen? We saw before that there was an attempt to make her, to appoint her into office that was gravely rejected by Nigerians. Do you foresee a repeat of that situation in this circumstance?
But I don't really see that happening. The only pushback I've seen mostly are again from people who are bringing up the fact that she's not from an oil-producing area. But I think that's not an argument to be making. As much as I understand the sentiment behind this argument, it shouldn't be what they should be making. I think the focus should be more on her capabilities, on her antecedents, if she's capable of delivering the goods. And that, to us, to me, to the Niger Delta Congress, we don't see her being able to do that. But unfortunately, unlike the INEC scenario where everybody knew she was partisan and people were trying to ensure that the process was not flawed, the NDDC is a different ballgame entirely. It's basically, at this point in time, run by a political party loyalists. So she has that free pass. But the fact remains that there's nothing in her past, there's nothing in her present that has shown that she's someone that is capable of actually executing the responsibilities of her office to the Niger Delta people.
I also would ask, do you think maybe, Nigerians need to stop picking on Lauretta Onochie? And because if you look across the list, no other name there has raised any eyebrows. Seriake Dixon and some other person, did, push an opposition to her nomination. But no other name that has raised eyebrows. So do you think Nigerians are really just being picky? Nobody has asked questions about the other people who are there and their qualifications and whether they, they deserve those positions. There is even people from northern Nigeria, which I probably would get to later, that, people might argue that, they don't necessarily have any business with the Niger Delta Development Commission because they're not from the Niger Delta. So do you think Nigerians maybe are just picking on Lauretta and they should let her be?
I don't think so, because even we in the Niger Delta, we don't see this appointment as something that's going to push the agency forward. But I also don't want to just cast her at the side until she has actually gone through her term and taken actions. And we have seen that, okay, yes, to us, we don't really see anything moving. So it's not like people are picking on her. You have to do something or do things that will make people pick on you. And that's what Lauretta, all through this government, where she has played a role. That's what it has basically been. There is nothing stand out about Onochie. There's nothing you can say, okay, this is something that Onochie contributed to the region, to the government, to the system. There's nothing. It has always been, to a large extent, nuisance. And I think that's why people pick on her. Maybe she does have something upstairs to offer. We are yet to see it. And it's quite sad that in the NDDC that we are going to have to sit down and hold our breath and see if there's actually something that she has to offer. It would have been better if tried and tested people who have a history of understanding the region, people like Reverend Nibo Bassi and so many others, given this opportunity. There are people that can actually deliver. As regards the northern reps and all that, I think it's part of the NDDC constitution. Unfortunately, that's how Nigeria functions. Anything good. As long as you're in the majority, you can do what it is you want to do. So I guess that's why those people are there. And, it is what it is.
Okay, so I also want to ask about one of the things. I'm going to see if I can quickly find it. In the news report, it says here, yes, one of the things that was mentioned, and it might take you back to something you spoke about earlier. It says here that the Senate President, Ahmed Lawan, urged the new board and management of the NDDC not to see the commission as a cash cow, but as an interventionist agency created to facilitate the development of the Niger Delta region. So I'm asking that because for that to even be mentioned, because you understand our country well enough. For the Senate President to even have to mention that, it tells that there is some precedence. So I want you to speak on that, and once again, talk about what the NDDC really, is seen as by these people who get these appointments. Because over time, I do not see that the NDDC has been utterly beneficial to people of the Niger Delta. So I want your response to the Senate President's call that they shouldn't see this as a cash cow.
I would have appreciated that statement more. Nigeria, power outage. I would have respected that statement more if it was coming from somebody who is not really a part of the system per se. If you study the NDDC and the processes that have led to its leadership emerging, you realize that mostly before elections, that's when you have an NDDC board set up. From 2015 till date, if you look at where a leadership has been put in place for the NDDC, just maybe 2-3 months before an election, whatever the election, it might be runoff, it might be general election, and we are witnessing it once again. So as much as it might be saying it should not be seen as, paraphrasing it, a slush fund kind of agency, it is what it is. That's basically entirely what is going to happen. You can actually move from now, start making the permutations as regards the Delta State elections, where the Deputy Senate President is actually a candidate. He is running under the APC. You can also see the fact that Lauretta Onochie, she herself is someone under the APC who is also loyal to the Deputy Senate President. So even without being in the system, you can see the dots and you can connect. That's what is definitely going to happen. I personally, the NDC that I represent, we don't see the NDDC as it is currently constituted, as something that was constituted with the aim, with the objective of developing our region. I believe it was set up to actually help facilitate funding for the upcoming general elections by people within the region who are loyal to the present system.
All right, let's talk about one of the controversies that have stemmed as a result of this appointment. And none of that would be that people said, of course, that why was she being appointed when she's not from the Niger Delta? But there are people here who have been also appointed, and I'm just going to run quickly through. Confirmed by the Senate are Alhaji Mohammed Kabir Abubakar, Zonal Representative, Nasarawa State, North Central; Alhaji Sadiq Samisule Iko, Zonal Representative, Kebbi State, Northwest; Professor Tahir Maman SCN, Zonal Representative, Adamawa State, Northeast. I could go on and on. Now, these people are Northerners. Do you maybe foresee that this might also spark some controversy? Or is it really not about where she's from, but really more about the person, that is Lauretta Onochie?
I think it's actually a lot about where she's from. The argument I've seen in relation to that has not really been that she's not Niger Delta. She's from Anioma. Anioma is Niger Delta. Delta State is Niger Delta. I think the issue has been the fact that she's from a part of the Niger Delta that isn't an oil-producing part of the region. I think they even had similar issues in Ondo State with the person who was nominated to represent them. I understand, like I said earlier, I do understand the sentiment, but I think at this point in time, the Niger Delta people, we should have gone past that. We should understand that as much as the resources might be domiciled in certain areas of the region, it's something that, like we say, it traverses through other parts of the region. And if certain negative externalities occur from its exploitation, even people who are not oil-producing areas are also going to be impacted by it. So I do not see anything in that in people who are agitating along that line. I think if that's the only issue that they would have against her, and not the fact that she doesn't have that capability to deliver, then I think it shouldn't be taken seriously. We've gone past that. We should be looking about uniting the region. But as for the other northern reps, like you said, that's how the NDDC has been structured. It has been structured in such a way that every section of this country, whether you have oil or not, you have a representative on the board. So it's quite unfortunate, because at the end of the day, it's not something that we can say the Niger Delta people had a say in and actually approve, because we don't have the numbers in the National Assembly. So it's something that we just have to find the way around and see how we can change it, or if we're ever going to just continue to exist like that.
Well, I mean, it might be my final question to you, but I want you to help us make sense of that. You know, the last thing you spoke about now, makes sense, you know, for the rest of Africa. How do people who aren't from oil-producing states, who are from Nasarawa and the likes, get to be on the board of the Niger Delta Development Commission? And I mean, in what way do they, create any value to the Niger Delta Development Commission? Why do we have a Northwest representative and, and some of all of that?
Well, the truth is, it's not about value. And that's something people really need to understand about the Nigerian state. It's never about value. It's more about plundering, about access to closeness, proximity to resources. And we might want to disagree or want to argue, but the truth is the present Nigerian state has been designed solely around the exploitation of crude oil. And it's important to those who have created the system to ensure that they are close to where it is, where these resources come from, and where the luggage, as you might say, has been shared, because that's basically what goes on. And that's the only reason why you can have all these people on the board. It's not because they are supposed to offer anything tangible, offer anything productive. It's just to have people there who can be an eye, be an ear, and participate in the, the brutal plundering, like I would say, of the Niger Delta people. It's wrong, but Nigeria currently exists on injustice, on wrongness. So that's just how it is, but we hope to change it soon enough.
That's a very, painful way to wrap it up about Nigeria, thriving on injustice. And we hope that that is not the reality of our people in the coming future. Thank you very much for joining us this morning on the show.
Thank you very much for having me.